how, if you were in our shoes, you might navigate that?
Well, I believe that the ones that cave under a pressure from a so-called friend that would actually cause true harm, then that part will also then show quite great weakness, and that weakness will be taken advantage
How
of.
the Europeans essentially cut themselves off from energy in this way? I mean, this has been one of the sources of European success over the years.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to dwell too much into the colonial history of Europe, but we all know that the continent of Europe, wherever it starts, wherever it ends, but let's say it starts somewhere on the British Isles, it ends somewhere on what EU foreign borders are, Black Sea. Let's assume this is Europe. Then this is a poor continent. It's not the wealthy continent like Africa. It's not as wealthy as Southern America. Why do I quote these two? Because there we have arable soil, which is abundant. We have water resources, and we do have all sorts of minerals. So the African continent is wealthy. And this was very much in the back mind of the European colonial powers. Everybody wanted to go to Africa. Sometimes at a certain point in 19th century, Germany was the latecomer among the colonial powers that just grasped a little bit just before World War I. But this is all due to the fact that Europe is a poor continent. Europe had to export its surplus of population, especially its, if I may say, angry young men who had to find some sort of activity. At a certain point in history, it was the Crusades to just get the second and third born out of the farm that was given to the firstborn. And at a later stage in history, it was the colonial empires that absorbed this surplus of European population. But Europe as such is and was not a wealthy continent when we speak of arable soil and when we speak of minerals. So speaking in financial terms, both hard and soft commodities, minerals, soft commodities, agricultural products. And this is now coming very much to the surface. I see a very explosive mix in Europe, not only when it comes to shortage of gas for the next heating season, because the gas reserves, the gas storage basins are not filled as they should be, but also right now because of the various problems. It's a mix of problems that we see, water situation in the Rhine and Danube River, the not cooling of nuclear reactors in France, not for the first time. I remember 2003, 2018, it was already an issue. But the French nuclear plants are so old, if I may say, that it's even too expensive to decommission them, not to speak about bringing in some innovative cooling system. So the mix is very, very dangerous. It's explosive because with the absence of energy, how do you want to organize any kind of economic life?
She's right, of course, and combine that with the Eurodollar market. Eurodollars, which are basically just tokenized offshore US dollars that are created out of thin air by banks and in Europe, which are now being discussed more and more, how essentially Europe is counterfeiting the real US dollars that come from the United States of America. So, this entire Eurodollar market situation where 59 Canadian companies, multinationals, 138 subsidiaries, Canadian subsidiaries, are all booking their profits into this tax haven. That's, I guess, the biggest, feature of this Eurodollar market is that you can save some taxes. But then they also pay taxes over there and not to us. And this Eurodollar market is the shadow banking system, which is so over leveraged that they have almost 1,000 trillion in derivatives to hide non-performing loans on their balance sheet. And these private equity companies that that in pension funds and insurance companies invested in these private equity companies, if the borrowers, okay, so they put their money in, right? But then these private equity companies, they lend out like to these AI firms, for example, who have no income yet. If these borrowers can't pay, then what they do is, and this is being revealed more and more by Blaine Holt, the Brigadier General retired, they apply what's called a PIK, which is a payment in kind. In other words, they just tell the borrowers, well, you don't have to worry, you can put your payment at the end. It's kind of like basically postponing the amortization. And so that way they can, say to their shareholders or, the board, the investors, well, don't worry, everything is fine, nobody's defaulting and all is fine. Or another strategy they have is simply gating redemptions. If the investors want to bolt for the door, they just say, oh, sorry, we can't pay you out in full right now, but we'll give you 5%. So this is where Canada is, and this is who Mark Carney wants to do business with. A poor continent that has no resources, is running out of water, has no arable land, can't basically even feed their heifers. They're having to slaughter their heifers right now. There's no hay. And he's going to some EU State of the Union. It was announced yesterday, I believe. Why, I don't know. Now the Europeans talking again about making Canada a member. Oh, I'm sure you would, just like Africa, right? I'm sure you would. So this has got to be looked at, and I'm not seeing anybody really discussing the exposure that Ottawa has gotten us into with this Eurodollar market, and it would be really great to see that. I hope Glenn Deason doesn't mind that I use some of this video, but I'm going to take my chances anyway because she does such a great job, Karen Kniesel, explaining the problems with Europe, and they have now. Basically, they're threatening her citizenship. They're going to revoke her citizenship. She is teaching, I believe, in Petersburg, Russia. Bye for now.